Hello and welcome to episode 10 of One More Music Pod.
Jack, you know how some albums don't just sound different, they feel different?
Yeah, like they capture something in the air, a mood, a moment in time.
And that album is Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. Released in 1979, it sounded like it was beamed in from another world.
It was dark, distant and somehow deeply human. And it all started with four guys from Manchester, apart from the guitarist who was from Salford.
An important difference.
Who just wanted to make noise. Hello and welcome to another episode of One More Music Pod. My name's Jack. With me, as ever, is Adam. How are you doing?
I'm well, Jack. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. So this episode is, of course, about Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. And Adam, I think it's fair to say you're particularly excited about this one.
Yeah, they're my favourite band, and this is my favourite album of all time. Yeah, really excited to do this episode and just talk about this album in depth, really.
Let's have a look at what's coming up in this episode. So we're going to look at the band, a bit of their history, how they got together, where they come from, pick out some of our favourite songs, chat about them. A bit of a look at the interesting recording techniques they use.
Yes.
Yeah, so shall we get into it?
Absolutely.
So, as ever, let's begin by having a look at the background of the band.
Yeah, and as I mentioned previously, Jack, Joy Division for me just aren't any other post-punk band. They were a band that, for me, kind of changed the sound of music forever, and that might sound like quite a big statement, but there are so many bands that they've influenced that I absolutely love. So I think it's important to kind of look into where they came from. So, formed in late 1970s in Salford, England.
The band came together after seeing the Sex Pistols play in Manchester. The lineup was Ian Curtis on the vocals, Bernard Sumner on guitar, Pete Hook on bass, and Stephen Morris on drums.
It was Peter Hook and Bernard Sumner that actually went to watch the Sex Pistols, an iconic venue, Lesser Free Trade Hall in Manchester. And this wasn't just a turning point for the band Joy Division, but also the music scene as a whole in Manchester.
So this event is depicted very well in the 2002 film 24 Hour Party People with Steve Coogan.
June the 4th, 1976. The Sex Pistols play Manchester for the very first time. There are only 42 people in the audience, but every single one of them is feeding on a power, an energy and a magic. Inspired, they will go out and perform wondrous deeds. For instance, Howard Devoto in the front, Pete Shelley at the back. They organised this gig. They're way ahead of everyone in Manchester. They're already the Buzzcocks. Howard later sleeps with my wife. Behind me are Stiff Kittens, soon to become Warsaw, later to become Joy Division, finally to become New Order. Ginger Nut, Mick Hucknall.
And yeah, by the way, what a great film that is. Definitely worth a watch if you're a Joy Division fan or a fan of just Manchester music really.
Scene, yeah.
It's a great story.
And ultimately, it was this gig that kickstarted, obviously Joy Division, as we've mentioned, but also bands like the Buzzcocks, Simply Red, the Smiths and the Fall. And I mean, like, what a lineup of Manchester bands that is.
So after this moment, Sumner and Hook put an ad out for a drummer and a singer. This was answered by Stephen Morris and Ian Curtis, and the rest, as they say, is history.
So originally the band were actually called Warsaw, and they were known around the Manchester kind of Cheshire areas having quite a raw sound, very chaotic, and I guess like the quintessential punk band at the time. And that they were huge fans of David Bowie, and that's where their name actually came from. David Bowie's song Warsaw's, and at the time there was another band circulating called Warsaw Pact.
Oh, okay.
And that meant they had to change their name. And that's where the name Joy Division came from.
Okay, so I always like to have a little dig through the stats, so let's do that again for this one. Released on June the 15th, 1979, it was recorded at Strawberry Studio in Stockport. Released on the Factory label. Chart position in the UK, it reached number 71, and sales to date are around 300,000. So not a mega all-time seller, is it?
No.
It has had 510 million streams on Spotify, though, so quite interesting. I think it kind of maybe shows it's kind of something that's grown over the years and maybe in the early days wasn't such a big hit.
Maybe they were kind of underappreciated.
Yeah.
And that kind of shows again with the chart positioning. But I think over time, as you say, the band have become more iconic and people realise actually how much influence the band have had on the music scene.
Produced by Martin Hannett, quite an iconic producer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was a man who was completely obsessed with space and atmosphere. So when working with Joy Division, he had a very specific vision. He wanted them to sound like they were playing in a vast, empty room, something haunting and expansive. That moody, atmospheric quality we love about the band, well, much of it comes down to his production choices. He made heavy use of echo, delay and reverb, and you can really hear this on tracks like Candidate and Insight.
I think in documentaries and films that we've watched, he is depicted in a way where he would very much try various techniques to chase a certain sound. So, for example, he'd place microphones in really unusual spots, down hallways and stairwells, and record each instrument separately to create a kind of layered, spacious feel. He also experimented with found sounds, which is a new term that, do my research, I looked into, like breaking glass or the hiss of spray cans and blending them with early digital effects. Really a kind of a forerunner, if that's the word, in experimental sounds. And he's renowned as a pioneer of digital production. And I guess that forms part of Joy Division's identity, this kind of eerie, otherworldly soundscape that the bands are known for. And it's interesting when you hear band members talking about Martin Hannett and the sound he wanted Joy Division to produce, because particularly Peter Hook, he's probably the most punk of all of the band members, and he really didn't like the sound that Martin Hannett was producing at the time. He wanted it to be a little bit more raw, but thank God that they all listened to him and they went with the sound he was trying to produce on this record.
Yeah, I think also worth mentioning his personality. Known to be quite difficult, unpredictable, often withdrawn, and could be moody for long stretches of time. And many bands found him hard to work with. But maybe that intensity and isolation helped shape the strange magic he brought to the studio. I think after all, his unique sound didn't come from following the rules, it came from breaking them.
Yeah.
Right, so the album cover, it's very iconic. If you've not seen it on the front of an LP, you've probably seen it on a T-shirt somewhere.
Yeah.
The image is a stacked plot of the radio emissions given out by a pulsar, which is a rotating neutron star. Originally named CP1919, the pulsar was discovered in November 1967 by student Jocelyn Bell Burnell and her supervisor Anthony Hewish at Cambridge University. As the star turns, it emits electromagnetic radiation in a beam like a lighthouse, which can be picked up by radio telescopes. Each line on the image is an individual pulse.
All from the top of the head, that, Jeff?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Wasn't reading that.
So the image itself was printed in the UK in 1977 in a book called The Cambridge Encyclopedia of Astronomy, which it formed part of a feature on pulsars. And it was here that Bernard Sumner, himself a graphic designer working at the Cosgrove Hall Animation Studios in Chiltern, Manchester, saw the image. He told Maxim in 2015, "On my lunch break, I'd go to the Manchester Central Library and get a sandwich at the cafe. They had a good art section and a good science section. I'd read through the books in search of inspiration. One of the images I found was the Unknown Pleasures image that clicked with me straight away."
When the band needed a cover for the album, they took this image to Factory Records in-house designer Peter Saville. The original image has black lines on a white background, but Saville reversed the colours and voila! Unknown Pleasures had its cover.
As easy as that.
Blimey. I mean, where do we start with that? I mean, when you try to come up with an idea for an album cover, there can't be many people that have the idea for the radio emissions given out by a pulsar.
But it fits. It's perfect, really, when you think about it.
It's become this completely iconic cover, hasn't it? You look at it and you don't know what it is. You have to think about it.
There's nothing on there to indicate who the band are, the name of the album. It is just quite a small image in the centre of the sleeve, I guess. And for something so simple, it's just very, very powerful. And if you're flicking through records and you see that, you're going to pick it up. You're going to want to listen to it and you're going to want to find out what the sound is. And I guess that's why the legacy of the image is still to this day. You see it everywhere. You see it, like you mentioned before, on T-shirts, posters. People have tattoos. Yeah, it's actually known as the Mona Lisa of album covers,
okay.
which I think I'd agree with that.
Right, okay, let's have a look at some of the songs then. I think no better place to start than the track that opens the album, Disorder.
And I don't think there's a better way to open an album than this song. And, you know, from the first couple of seconds of Disorder, you're kind of hit with Hook's punchy melodic bass line and Morris's precise yet driving drumming with Sumner's bright, fractured guitar textures. And then obviously you've got Ian Curtis, who enters with these urgent yet strangely detached vocals. And I just remember listening to this for the first time, and I'd never heard anything like it before.
And it captures the tone and the feel of the album just perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not the soft entrance, is it? They're like straight into it.
Yeah.
It doesn't build up at all. It's just like, here we go. This is Joy Division. This is who we are. And it's an interesting song because you've got kind of this contrast. It's a very fast song, isn't it? But you've also got lyrics that link to that kind of speak of this loss of control, this mental strain. But at the same time, the music's so tight and well produced and well played that it kind of contrasts the lyrics of lack of self-control and chaos, I guess, that the lyrics hint at.
Ironically, despite being the first track on Unknown Pleasures, this one was actually the last one to be written.
Okay.
The band apparently pieced it together quickly just before heading into Strawberry Studios. Not that you'd ever guess.
No, it's such an iconic Joy Division song.
It's funny how that happens quite often, doesn't it? Bands just kind of stick a song together in a few minutes and it becomes their most iconic song.
Yeah.
I've heard that a few times. I don't know if it's maybe you don't have enough time to
overthink.
Overthink or second guess yourself.
Maybe that's, you produce your best work under pressure.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favourites, and I think it quickly became a favourite for both the band and the fans.
So for Peter Hook, this track was also a bit of a milestone. He said that Disorder was the first time his bass took the lead role. The start of that iconic driving sound that he became known for.
Yeah.
The bass line on this song is so good, isn't it? Like really
really stands out.
Yeah, it really drives the song along, doesn't it?
And I think that kind of played into Pete Hook's kind of psyche, really, as being, as I've mentioned before, the more punkier of the band. And when they were to play it live, it would be much faster, much rougher, more raw, more chaotic, and again, much closer to their punk roots as they started out as Warsaw.
So, a song I want to talk about is one of my personal favourites on the album, She's Lost Control.
And she gave away the secrets of her past and said I lost control again. And of a voice that told her when and where to act, she said I lost control again.
This song was inspired by a young woman that Ian Curtis met through his job as an employment officer. She suffered from epilepsy and tragically died during a seizure, something that resonated deeply with Curtis, who himself struggled with epilepsy. Of course, the line "She's Lost Control" echoed Curtis's own fears of losing control due to his seizures, giving the song a hauntingly autobiographical undertone. So, yeah, of course, Curtis was diagnosed with epilepsy, wasn't he? Basically, he was told, no late nights, no alcohol.
Yeah.
Which, if you're the lead singer of a rock band, isn't really going to fit with your life, is it?
Absolutely. And the lifestyle really took a toll on his mental health. So obviously he was dealing with his illness, but also the band were getting more and more popular, which really affected Ian Curtis. And when we think of what they went on to produce in their second album, Closer, you can really see that in the themes of that album. And actually, going back to this track, there are two versions of this song, aren't there, Jack?
Yeah.
So you've got obviously the one on Unknown Pleasures, which we know, which is a lot more slower, more atmospheric. And then the single version, which was released on the Atmosphere 12-inch in 1980, is a more urgent and dance-like song with a harder drum sound.
Yeah, I think for me, I prefer the Unknown Pleasures version.
Fits the rest of the album, doesn't it?
Yeah, this version really captures the Joy Division aesthetic, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that the fact that it's slower and builds as the song progresses.
That's such a hallmark of them, isn't it?
Yeah, and it fits the themes of the song, doesn't it? The idea that he developed epilepsy.
Yeah, it starts out quite contained and then just gradually gets more and more chaotic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Stephen Morris's drumming as well on this track. Each drum part was recorded separately to give a cleaner sound and remove any bleed through. There's a mechanical hiss sound that provides the rhythmic element to the song, that sort of That was created by Stephen Morris spraying an aerosol can into a microphone during the recording.
I think Stephen Morris is sometimes overlooked. He's a machine when it comes to drumming. If you've watched a live performance of him drumming, he just never stops and he never misses a beat. And it must have been quite taxing to play some of these songs live. And for anybody that is maybe a drummer or interested in drumming, if you go and read his book, he talks more about where his interest in drums came from.
Right, okay.
And it's a really interesting backstory, but I think he's such a key part of the band, and I don't think they'd be the same without his drumming.
Yeah, he is an absolute machine, isn't he?
Okay, Jack, so one of my favourite tracks is Candidate.
I can't pay for nothing. I worked hard for this. I tried to get to you. You treat me like this.
Which I guess is one of the more minimalist tracks on the album Unknown Pleasures. Just slap bang in the middle of the album. And I think that's really important because that's when the album starts to change a little bit musically. It might not be as catchy as songs like Disorder or She's Lost Control, but it's an essential track in shaping the album's mood and really showing the depth of the band's sound. Morris lays down this cold, almost mechanical drum pattern, and Hook's bass keeps the track moving with that steady, driving rhythm. And lyrically, it's probably one of the more emotionally distant songs, or set of lyrics that Curtis ever wrote. Lines like "We were strangers for far too long" really capture that crushing sense of disconnection and isolation that he was feeling at the time.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a run of songs in this section of the album, haven't you? So you've got like Day of the Lords, Candidate, Insight as well.
Yeah.
Feel a lot more emotional. Like the other sections of the album feel a bit more poppy, and they're more about the music and the rhythms.
Yeah.
Whereas these feel like they're more focused on Curtis and his lyrics, I think. Yeah.
And again, mentioning Closer, their second album, that album is very much like the second half of Unknown Pleasures. And interestingly, Sumner didn't really like this track, so much so that when they were playing it live, he'd often play his guitar parts backwards just to make them more interesting, and kind of a classic case of turning frustration into something strangely more beautiful. And he was reading about particularly New Order, he's quite a difficult character to work with, and he can throw tantrums if he's maybe not the centre of attention. I think this is maybe an example of that. Yeah,
I do like when people do that. It's kind of got Kurt Cobain vibes. So we talked about it in the last episode, didn't he? He didn't like playing Smells Like Teen Spirit live, so he'd often mess up the guitar parts on that. So towards the end of the album is the song Interzone. It was named after a location in the 1959 novel Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs, which was a favourite author of Ian Curtis. This is a song that stands out as something a bit different on the album, more of a nod to their punk roots.
Yeah, and again, I think this is something that maybe Peter Hook pushed with this album, because this is something that was obviously on previous recordings when they were Warsaw, and it was re-recorded for Unknown Pleasures. And interestingly, Jack, this song began its life as a cover of the Nolan Porter song, Keep On Keeping On.
So that song came about because their A&R man at the time was keen for them to cover one of his favourite Northern Soul singles. The song eventually evolved into a Joy Division original, but you can definitely still hear the song's origins in that guitar riff. And I'm so glad they didn't just do a cover, because I just cannot imagine Joy Division doing a Northern Soul song. It's just so unlike their character, isn't it?
I'd have liked to have heard it though. Maybe like a B-side. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And interestingly, Jack, Peter Hook, he delivers the vocals on this track. And actually, he's got what a good voice.
Yeah.
And I have seen him live, actually, when he was touring as Peter Hook on the Light, and he'd play his own tracks, he'd play some Joy Division tracks. Yeah, and I think he's quite a strong vocalist. It's very different to Ian Curtis, but I think he did a good job on this.
Yeah, the song does get a bit of criticism sometimes for not really fitting in with the aesthetic of the rest of the album, which I kind of get. I mean, I love it. I think it's such a great song.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, well, it's a perfect album for me, so
yeah,
there's no criticism on my part. So, Jack, I think that sums it up for this album.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's, again, as mentioned at the start, this is my favourite album from my all-time favourite band. An absolute masterpiece. There's no faults with this album. I can't criticise any of the songs. And yeah, I just think it inspired so many bands. It still has an influence on bands to this day. And for anybody that hasn't listened to this album, get listening, because it's you won't regret it. Yeah,
it's an absolute post-punk classic. And moving on, our next episode is a classic of the indie rock genre.
Yep.
Block Party's 2005 album, Silent Alarm. And in the meantime, remember, you can give us a follow on Instagram or TikTok. We're at onemoremusicpod. Also, feel free to get in touch with us on email, onemoremusicpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this album or any of the albums we've talked about on the series. So, that just about wraps it up for another episode of One More Music Pod. My name's Jack.
My name's Adam.
And we will catch you next time.
See you soon.